Oh, okay. So I just took off from the plant that I was sitting on, and apparently the keybinds have all changed, and I do not like the keybinds that they have made. So at some point I'm going to have to get back in here and rebind everything back to the way it was. Or at least the way I understand it to be. That's the fun part. Oh, well, that's part of what happens when you get back into a game that you haven't really done all the time to simply serve as a setback for this piece. I'm looking at this right now. I really don't like the color. I may have to wait for fucking Black Friday paint jobs. Anyway, what we are going to discuss today. So, um, for those who are familiar more with the last appearance I put in with Tom's streams, a good half of that was spanking the individual in question who handed me this link. Now, to put a little bit in perspective as far as this is concerned, I have never gotten along with this particular individual. He calls himself an anarcho-socialist, which are the two things that I believe to be the antithesis of each other. But he decided that he wanted to post a video here, and it's a speech from Malcom X. And in said speech, he basically makes the claim to, if I'm recalling his words correctly, if you want to get inside the head of a young black man in modern society as it is today, this speech will help you do it, give or take. Alright. So, I have not actually had the chance to actually listen to this speech, so this is literally going to be pretty much raw and uncensored. Not uncensored, this is going to be raw footage. First time reaction to this whole thing, so we're just going to kind of get into it. It's about 20 minutes long, so this is going to be a long video. And then we're going to kind of, I'm going to get into what I think about it afterwards, so it's a reaction speech. Now, to put a little bit in context, the way I understand Malcom X is that he was the uh, he was the practical opposite to Martin Luther King Jr. Now, the two existed in the same era, fighting the same fight, but they went about it different ways. Martin Luther King Jr. went about it in the way of civil disobedience and whatnot, whereas Malcolm X had the mentality of, if you want something, you have to take it by force. And that was the way he said it. He said, if blacks were ever going to get civil rights, they were going to have to take it by force. It's where a lot of the problems necessarily come from. If you're familiar with the one video I did on Ruby Nor itself, and Ruby itself having an issue with the White Fang being a stand-in for the whole Black Panther Party and whatnot into and of itself, kind of the same thing there. It's that if the minority wants rights, they have to terrorize the majority and take it by force. It's a practical aspect. It's one I understand, and I get. Maybe I just don't agree with it because I'm part of the quote-unquote majority. But anyway, I'm probably going to get a whole lot of pushback. There's going to be some purists out there. Oh, this is what Malcolm X didn't believe that. Guys, if you're going to sit there and tell me to do my research, shut the fuck up. This is literally what I am doing right here and now. I am trying to go into this with an open mind, even though I have my understanding as it is. I am going to open this and see if this speech changes my perception or understanding about this in any way. That's what doing research is about. So, shut the fuck up if you're going to be a purist. Go away and let me actually do the research you claim I need to do, because that is exactly what we're doing today. All right. So, enough faffing about. So, the speech in question is Malcolm X, the House Negro, and the Field Negro. Again, I have, beyond what I am told, that this is supposedly a look into what the young black man is facing these days in modern times. I have no idea what's going to happen here. I have a few ideas as to what the outcome will be, but ultimately, until I actually hear this, then I can't say for one way or another how this really is. It's the first time listening to it. All right, so Here we go. Malcom X, the House Negro, and the Field Negro.
To understand this, you have to go back to what young brother here referred to as the House Negro and the Field Negro. Back during slavery, there was two kinds of slaves. There was the House Negro and the Field Negro. The House Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save their master's house quicker than the master would. The House Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the House Negro say, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a House Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the House Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the House Negro would say, what's the matter, boss? We sick. We sick. He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the House Negro and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's separate, that House Negro would look at you and say, man, you crazy. What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was that House Negro. In those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today because we still got some house niggers running around here. This modern House Negro loves his master. He wants to live near him. He'll pay 3 times as much as the house is worth just to live near his master. And then brag about, I'm the only Negro out here. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in this school. You nothing but a House Negro. And if someone come to you right now and say, let's separate, you say the same thing that the House Negro said on the plantation. What you mean separate? From America? This good white man? Where you gonna get a better job than you get here? I mean, this is what you say. I ain't left nothing in Africa. That's what you say. Why, you left your mind in Africa. On that same plantation, there was the Field Negro. The Field Negro, those were the masses. There was always more Negroes in the field than there was Negroes in the house. The Negro in the field caught hell. He ate leftovers. In the house, they ate high up on the hog. The Negro in the field didn't get nothing but what was left of the insides of the hog. They call them chitlins nowadays. In those days, they call them what they were, guts. That's what you were, a gut eater. And some of you all still gut eaters. The Field Negro was beaten from morning till night. He lived in a shack, in a hut. He wore cast-off clothes. And he hated his master. I say he hated his master. He was intelligent. That House Negro loved his master. But that Field Negro, remember, they were in the majority. and they hated the master. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try and put it out. That field Negro prayed for a wind, for a breeze. When the master got sick, the field Negro prayed that he died. If someone come to the field Negro and said, let's separate, let's run, he didn't say, where are we going? He said, any place is better than here. You got field Negroes in America today. I'm a field Negro. The masses are the field Negroes. When they see this man's house on fire, you don't hear these little Negroes talking about our government is in trouble. They say the government is in trouble. Imagine a Negro, our government. I even heard one say our astronauts. They won't even let him near the plant. And our astronauts, our Navy, that's a Negro that's out of his mind. That's a Negro that's out of his mind. Just as the slave master in that day used Tom, the house Negro, to keep the field Negroes in check, the same old slave master today has Negroes who are nothing but modern Uncle Toms, 20th century Uncle Toms, to keep you and me in check, keep us under control, keep us passive and peaceful and nonviolent. That's Tom making you nonviolent. It's like when you go to the dentist and the man is going to take your tooth. You're going to fight him when he starts pulling. So they squirt some stuff in your jaw called Novocaine to make you think they're not doing anything to you. So you sit there, and because you got all that Novocaine in your jaw, you suffer peacefully. Blood running all down your jaw. And you don't know what's happening because someone has taught you to suffer peacefully. The white man do the same thing to you in the street. When he gonna want to put knots on your head and take advantage of you and don't have to be afraid of you fighting back, to keep you from fighting back, he get these old religious Uncle Toms to teach you and me. They're just like Novocaine, suffer peacefully. Don't stop suffering, just suffer peacefully. As Reverend Cleave pointed out, let your blood flow in the streets. This is a shame. And you know he's a Christian preacher. If it's a shame to him, you know what it is to me. Because nothing in our book, the Quran, as you call it, Koran, teaches us to suffer peacefully. Our religion teaches us to be intelligent, be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery. That's a good religion. In fact, that's that old-time religion. That's the one that Ma and Pa used to talk about. An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's a good religion. And then anybody, no one resents that kind of religion being taught but a wolf who intends to make you his meal. This is the way it is with the white man in America. He's a wolf, and you a sheep. Anytime a shepherd, a pastor, teach you and me not to run from the white man. And at the same time, teach us don't fight the white man. He's a traitor to you and me. Don't lay down our life all by itself. No. Preserve your life. It's the best thing you got. And if you got to give it up, let it be even Stephen. The slave master took Tom and dressed him well and fed him well and even gave him a little education, Gave him a long coat and a top hat and made all the other slaves look up to him. Then he used Tom to control them. The same strategy that was used in those days is used today by the same white man. He take a Negro, so-called Negro, and make him prominent, build him up, publicize him, make him a celebrity, and then he becomes a spokesman for Negroes and a Negro leader. I would like to just mention one thing else quickly, and that is the method that the white man uses, how the white man uses these big guns or Negro leaders against the black revolution. They are not a part of the black revolution. They're used against the black revolution. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights struggle in America reached its low point. King became bankrupt almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble, plus it was in trouble, period, with the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders began to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you. They contained you. They kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the streets. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Come to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall, right after that, Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get him out of jail and spend a lot of money, and then he accused King and Corps of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I got it in documented evidence in the newspaper. Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and Farmer started attacking both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature begin to attack each other, they begin to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was out there in the streets. They was talking about, we're going to march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. So, and right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land.
I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the black revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. The Carlisle Hotel is owned by the Kennedy family. That's the hotel Kennedy spent the night at 2 nights ago. Belongs to his family. A philanthropic society headed by a white man named Stephen Currier called all the top civil rights leaders together at the Carlisle Hotel and told them that by you all fighting each other, you're destroying the civil rights movement. And since you're fighting over money from white liberals, let us set up what's known as the Council for United Civil Rights Leadership. Let's form this council, and all the civil rights organizations will belong to it, and we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you how tricky the white man is. And as soon as they got it formed, they elected Whitney Young as the chairman. And who you think became the co-chairman? Stephen Currier, the white man. A millionaire. Powell was talking about it down at the Cobo today. This is what he was talking about. Powell knows it happened. Randolph knows it happened. Wilkins knows it happened. King knows it happened. Every one of that so-called Big Six, they know what happened. Once they formed it with the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the Big Six, and told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more. $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they've nothing but Frank James and Jesse James and brothers. Soon as they got the setup organized, the white men made available to them top public relations experts. Opened the news media across the country at their disposal. And then they began to project these Big Six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was talking this march talk on Hastings Street. Is Hastings Street still here? On Hastings Street. You was talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue, and down on, Fillmore Street, and Central Avenue, and 42nd Street, and 63rd Street. That's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the Big Six ahead of it, made them the march. They became the march. They took it over. And the first move they made after they took it over, they invited Walter Reuther, a white man. They invited a priest, a rabbi, and an old white preacher. Yes, an old white preacher. The same white element that put Kennedy in power labored, the Catholics, the Jews, in liberal Protestants. Same clique that put Kennedy in power joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep. This is what they did with the March on Washington. They joined it. They didn't integrate it, they infiltrated it. They joined it, became a part of it, took it over. And as they took it over, it lost its militancy. They ceased to be angry. They ceased to be hot. They ceased to be uncompromising. Why, it even ceased to be a march. It became a picnic, a circus. Nothing but a circus with clowns and all. You had one right here in Detroit. I saw it on television with clowns leading it, white clowns and black clowns. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I can prove what I'm saying. If you think I'm telling you wrong, you bring me Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and James Farmer and those other three, and see if they'll deny it over a microphone. No, it was a sellout. It was a takeover. When James Baldwin came in from Paris, they wouldn't let him talk because they couldn't make him go by the script. Burt Lancaster read the speech that Baldwin was supposed to make. They wouldn't let Baldwin get up there because they know Baldwin liable to say anything. They controlled it so tight, they told those Negroes what time to hit town, how to come, where to stop, what sign to carry, what song to sing, what speech they could make and what speech they couldn't make, and then told them to get out of town by sundown. And every one of those Toms were out of town by sundown. Now, I know you don't like my saying this, but I can back it up. It was a circus, a performance. It beat anything Hollywood could ever do. The performance of the year. Ruther and those other three devils should get a Academy Award for the best actors because they acted like they really loved Negroes and fooled a whole lot of Negroes. And the 6 Negro leaders should get an award, too, for the best supporting cast.
Oh my fucking God, he's a Muslim. That's right, I think I forgot about that fact. Jesus Christ. Okay, that's a lot to unpack here. Alright. Alright. Well, I can... Yeah, I need a minute. I need to get my fucking thoughts in order about this. This is probably the advantage that those who do scripted things do. They can get their thoughts written down, you know, to do this. Again, we don't do that out here when we're screaming into the void like this. We got to puzzle it out kind of on live. So it's moments where you got dead air and you're just talking to make noise, and that's what I'm doing right now. As the song goes, I need noise. Alright. Alright. So let's... I think I understand the concept that he started with. I'm somewhat familiar with what he's talking about when he's talking the difference between the House and the Field Negro. I think I've had that brought up in civics class before. I tried to remain silent, and then he brings up the whole coffee. Oh my fucking god, and people hail him as some kind of hero and whatnot. He's a pragmaticist. I'll give him that much. When it came to getting results, he had it right. I'll give him credit for that. He had it right when it came to getting results. But my god, if you actually understand how... Alright, I'm not a chemist, so even I might be wrong on this one, but I mean, just adding cream and sugar and calling it weak afterwards only applies to the taste. It doesn't work on the caffeine content. That's the same. That's dependent on the coffee itself, and that's what'll basically wake you right up. Like, the amount of content of caffeine hasn't changed when you're adding in, cream, sugar, and all that fun stuff. That ain't gonna dilute it. In terms of waking you up, it's still gonna slap you in the face and be like, woo! Okay, we're ready to start the day now. But the taste we're talking about. The taste. That's what generally gets a little bit weaker. And it makes a kind of sense on what he's going on as far as that's concerned. If you really want to take what he says as truth and gospel about how the government infiltrated and took over the civil rights movement and instilled the leaders, the big six he called them, Martin Luther King Jr. and those other individuals. Yes, I don't know their names. It's like I only know the one. I'm like, big six. This is new. Where's this coming from? It's the same thing that I see as the problem with the idea of anarcho-socialism. It's the same thing that he describes. It's watering it down to make it more palatable for the masses to swallow. Okay, and I suppose when you're thinking about it like that, the coffee metaphor makes sense in terms of making it an easier pill to swallow as opposed to waking it up. Saying that it's strong probably is relating more to the taste. You're still going to wake up either way, but the taste isn't going to hit you over the goddamn head. Alright, getting back to what I was going to talk about after the whole speech was all said and done. And honestly, the more I got into it, the more I was listening to it, it started off like, maybe this isn't what I'm thinking it's going to be out. So it was like, it was going to be the second outcome that I expected after the speech. And nope, it went right back to option 3. Option 1 was going to be me kind of getting full of piss and vinegar and railing against this man for being an absolute madman. And then option 2 was going to be, no, hold up, maybe it's not as bad as I'm going to think. Maybe there's a bit of truth here. And then option 3 was, you know what, I was right about option 2, but still option 1 turned out to be prevalent. And I think that's where we went. We skipped over outcome 1. Because it came out to be option 2, where it's like, okay, maybe this is something I can sit down and stomach. And then he came in preaching the Quran, and I'm like, oh, fucking God, here we go. It's gonna be outcome 3. And what I wanted to discuss post-speech, and I think this is actually relevant, and to be honest, I'm kind of happy it did turn out to be relevant, is when Dip posted this and said that this is the mind of the young modern black man today, I'm thinking to myself, alright, so in other words, they're all just going to be nothing but revolutionaries. And it's the same problem I have with revolutionaries today. And back when I was young, I went to the army. I wanted to fight for my country, fight the good fight, all that jazz. It's all young, full of piss and vinegar, as they'd say back in World War II about the new paratroop jumpers. I want to be the first ones to boots on ground in Germany, kick the Kraut's face in, and be the ones to hand Hitler's head over to the president and whatnot. And as I've gotten older, maybe my removal from the army was a bit of a blessing in disguise, as unfair as it was, and that's a whole story that I'll get into later, and why I think I have an issue with the army as it is now. It all goes back. Actually, there's a Doctor Who scene from the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. I really like Capaldi. And I know that series was having some trouble finding its feet in that particular season, but there's this one episode that just really captivated me, where it's the model scale of war. And if you Google search that Doctor Who, the model scale of war with Peter Capaldi, and he goes on this epic 9-minute speech about the truth and consequences of starting a war. And I think this is where a lot of the people in Tom's servers are having the issue with Dip, is that he sees himself as this young revolutionary full of piss and vinegar, and most of us who are in the server are all, old fucks. We've been around the block a few times. We're all kind of getting up there in age, in our 30s. We just don't have the fire in us that we used to have anymore. And when we start to kind of look back on our younger years and we wonder what the fuck we were thinking, because the one thing this whole speech goes into is what happens after the revolution. But as the question the Doctor poses, you got your revolution, you succeeded, you won, you got what you want. What happens then? What comes next? As he begs the alien, I can't remember the species off the top of my head. Zygarian, Zygard, something. I think it was let's see. As he begs the impostor Clara, he says, "What happens after the wars? Will there be birthday parties? Will there be holidays? Will there be what is peacetime going to look like after the Great Revolution? What are you going to build?" And she had no answer for him. And then he asked her the next question. You've got it. Just you've succeeded. You've built it. It's like let's skip what your new peacetime society looks like. Let's skip to the next revolution. You've got the world and society just the way you want. It's perfect. It's a utopia. It's everything you could have ever imagined. What's going to protect it from the next revolution? No king rules forever. No king rules forever. And when the next revolution comes, because when you get the world perfect exactly the way you want, you're still going to have those rejects in society. Oh my god, I just remembered, it was a Rick and Morty episode. I can't remember if it was season 3 or 4. It was the episode where Rick supposedly had sex with a planet, and the planet calls him, and Rick, it basically goes into the whole aspect of basically building a society. And he gets, he kind of shortcuts the whole thing through the power of science, and sorting, all these children into making a functional society. Even though he does that, there's still rejects in the pile. There's still the undesirables, the unwanted, the people that just don't fit. What happens to them? And, well, in the episode, they kind of get dumped out the back roll, and then there's Jerry Smith out there back way, and he's basically wanting a family camping trip. That didn't happen. And so he inevitably finds these poor rejects like him, unwanted, unwashed. They don't fit in with everybody else. He takes them under his wing. He accepts them. And he basically teaches them all the... He basically tries to have his ideal camping experience with them, and then when one of them starts showing signs of intelligence, of creating beyond the rugged frontier that Jerry envisioned, he was labeled a heretic next. And I think that kind of plays into what we got here, Even among the rejects, there are rejects. Outcasts that don't belong among outcasts. Outcasts upon an outcast. Outcastception. We must go deeper. All right, rewinding back because I'm letting myself get dragged too far away from there on that end. But yes, that's the question that I think that's the problem with the types we have with the likes of Malcom X and these young revolutionaries. It's that when you sit them down and you ask them what's after the fight, they have no answer. They can't create. They don't know how to create. And when you sit down and you try to teach them how to build on the ashes of the old that they have successfully destroyed and create their utopia, they can't. It's a sad thing. And the fact that Dip kind of looks up to this as the mentality of young black Americans, I'd say this kind of actually confirms my suspicions and fears that the black culture, the black identity, is broken. It shouldn't even have been a thing in the first place. The fact that it's all built on the idea of revolution and freedom against the white man, I think it's what a lot of us have been saying over to them and trying to get through to them, and it's not working. I mean, even other blacks understand this, is that they're trapping themselves into this mentality. Malcom X here, he's sitting here basically telling them, when you trust these people who are, you can't trust the people, you can't trust the House Negro, is what he's saying. You can't trust that the House Negro is trying to help build bridges and integrate with their new society. Like, they want to be a part of it. Legitimately want to be a part of it. He's saying you can't trust them. It's like, you need to be black coffee. You need to be constantly full of piss and vinegar. To which, if I could ask Malcom X today, I would say, okay, so you get your revolution. What comes after? And I have to wonder what he would say. Because the way he talks, the way he riles up his crowd, you can even hear him in the background back there. I don't think he'd have an answer for me either. And I'm looking through the comments of this one video, and they basically say preaching, praising him as the man speaking truth. I admit, he's definitely speaking from practicality as opposed to idealism. And he definitely kind of helped struck a balance there as far as that's concerned. But the way he tries to rile up his followers it's the same as in the Islamic culture, to rile them up, to be full of piss and vinegar, to go off and fight. And I think that's the big question here today. What's after the revolution? What's after the fight? Say you've won. What do you do next? Or maybe I'm just screaming into the void on this one.